The Infiniti QX50 might actually be the best value as far as compact luxury crossovers goes. And in this video, I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition, including new pricing for 2025 and a new trim that I think makes this a lot more appealing from a buying standpoint. But as far as the styling on this 2024 and 2025, there's really no changes outside of a new sport package, which is the top trim for 25, which gives you a slightly sportier front end that is basically just copied from the QX55, which is the coupe version of this vehicle. But as far as this design in general, it's been around for about 6 or 7 years now. It's been around, this QX50 in this current form, since 2019, and really didn't get a refresh. I don't think it needs one though. And I think this is the sign of a good design, that all these years later, this still looks so classy and actually really modern and just good looking, at least in my opinion. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. But with all these new crossovers being so polarizing and in your face and crazy, this is refreshingly simple, classy, and just, again, I think it's aged really, really well. And this slate gray color, I'm not usually a big fan of grays, but in different lighting situations, it really has a lot of different character to it and is a really nice look, especially paired with this really cool interior that we'll check out in a minute. But yeah, so all kind of the same up front there. Again, nothing new. This has all been the same for many years now, but you have some nice 20-inch wheels here on this one. And, you have like the brushed metal kind of appearance here to the side mirrors and the window trim. Then going out to the back, looks nice and just, again, classy. It still is distinctive and nice looking, but yeah, I think it just looks really nice out back there. And so overall, yeah, just really impressed that this design has held up so well. Unfortunately, the interior of the QX50 hasn't held up as well as the exterior styling. I do think it is still a beautiful interior though, in a lot of ways, even if the tech is a little bit behind. But you have in this one, this really beautiful brown and blue and cream color combo. And they've been offering this ever since 2019, but sadly for 2025, they're getting rid of this because this whole autograph trim that we're in here is going away. So this is the last year of 2024 is for this. And they actually get a little less luxurious because you don't get all these high-end finishes in the new top trim, which is that sport. And it's a really beautiful interior. And even having like a brown headliner and the quilted seats, it's all really impressive. But first thing, sitting down in these seats, they are so comfortable. Really thick quilts here. They're perforated, they're soft and squishy, and these seats just feel so nice. They're heated and ventilated. Some of my favorite seats in this segment for sure, and really well done. And the cooling, by the way, I've been using this week actually does get your back nice and cold, so it's a pretty effective one too. Next, there's the steering wheel here, which is still a very nice wheel, and I do love how there's just a few buttons here on it. It's nice and simple, easy to understand. It has a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches, and really well done there. The gauges are, old school. This is where we're starting to see the dated components here. And, there's really nothing wrong with them. It's just that, everyone these days has these cool high-res screens that have a lot of customization and all that. This, you just have that little 7-inch screen in the middle there. You can scroll through some of your basic info, and that's about it. But there's nothing wrong with the gauges. And again, if you're someone who actually prefers analog gauges these days, as that is becoming pretty rare, this is one of the last holdouts here. And so I can see the appeal for sure, but, not super exciting otherwise. But you do have a head-up display, which is nice and bright and high resolution, and certainly a nice thing here that is only on these top trims here of this Autograph, and for 2025, only on that sport trim, which is the new top trim. But coming over to the side of the dashboard here, this is the biggest offender here of, showing this vehicle is a little dated. And so we have a double screen set up here. The top is an 8-inch screen. I believe the lower one is a 7-inch screen. And the top one has like a matte finish to it. The bottom one is glossy. That's always been a strange thing they've never corrected as well. And so I will start off with a positive that, for everyone who's burned out about tacked on tablets on dashboards, this is nicely integrated. And honestly, hopping in this vehicle, it was kind of a shock, being like, oh wow, like the dashboard is actually flat and I can see the whole thing. It's something that, these days I don't see a whole lot of. So, it depends on your perspective. If you like the old school stuff and, you don't love the new direction a lot of these interiors are going in, this could be really a perk. And I think from a functional standpoint, most of the time it works pretty well. So the top screen handles your wireless Apple CarPlay or wired in Android Auto. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why they haven't made the wireless for Android Auto, but regardless, it works fairly well as far as swiping and all that, but that screen is mostly just only doing that. Otherwise, you can also show your maps up there. It also will show your backup camera on there as well. But, pretty simple for that top screen. And then going down to the bottom screen here, that handles your radio controls, your climate controls, including your heated steering wheel button. You have to dive into a sub-menu in order to get to that, which I don't love, but it's only 2 taps. Not the end of the world, but, I wish there was a button for that like we see for the seats. But, and that all works fine as far as tuning radio stations and all that. You still do have a volume knob, which is great as well, and a few shortcut buttons and some nice climate controls, hard buttons there as well. And so, it's totally functional. The only thing I will say, though, is during my week of using the QX50 here, it has been a little iffy. There was, the first time I connected it here, it was a little glitchy where it would drop out on a call and, it just actually completely disconnected CarPlay altogether and then had to reconnect itself. And there's another time where CarPlay was connected, but it just went silent and music wouldn't play. And it was just, not outputting any audio. So it's been a little glitchy as far as that goes. Don't love that, but otherwise it's been fine, and it is paired up to this really nice Bose Performance Series stereo. So here in this Autograph and the top Sport trim, you're going to have a 16 speaker Bose stereo, which is really nice. Sounds very, very good. These Bose Performance Series stereos are always so good, but even on the 12 speaker stereo, which is the base stereo, it's still a Bose stereo, and just only 4 less speakers, so not a big deal. If you go down to that, I'm sure still should be a very good sounding stereo, but this 16 speaker one I'm sure is just a little bit nicer, and that is something you can also even option on the regular mid-grade Luxe trim now for 2025 if you don't want to go for that Sport trim. So great they give you that option. One other little glitch I'll mention while we're on that topic, though, is that whenever I was giving some friends a ride earlier this week, they were sitting in the outboard seats, but the car was convinced that there was someone in the middle seat, and that middle seat occupant needed to buckle up. And it took it a while of beeping and being annoying before it finally figured out or gave up on the idea of a middle passenger being buckled there. I'm not sure, why it was struggling with that, but that's the only little glitch that I've ran across here this week. Otherwise, it's been pretty good as far as the interior goes. Moving on, though, we have in the middle here a wireless phone charger. You also have USB and USB-C jacks and regular power outlet, 2 smaller cup holders, and then just your shifter and all that. But in this area, there is one other complaint, and that is, moving on to the center armrest. Again, really love the stitching and the ridge here between the blue and the cream, but that edge is kind of uncomfortable to rest your elbow on. And every day I've been putting my elbow on here, I've been like, ow, it actually hurts to rest my elbow here. And it's also it's a little soft, but not too soft, but just the way my elbow placement is, I'm always getting it wrong, and I'm always placing it right on that seam, and it's actually uncomfortable. So I don't love that. It's one of those things where I think, the form took priority over the function possibly. But regardless, when you open it up, you see a pretty deep cubby in there that's nicely felt lined, and another little higher portion there, which is nice to have. And so, decent as far as storage space goes. I think there are some competitors these days, though, that do a better job with storage space up front here. And, but I mean, everything else up front here is just so nice. Again, even like the doors, you're having, all 3 colors of the interior and this nice open pore wood and the metal trim. It does feel very classy and very impressive, and honestly more impressive than some of the other competitors in this segment that are going for similar money or more money. And I think Infiniti did a really good job here on this interior. Backseat in the QX50 is also very nice and luxurious. More of those nice soft seats. And those seats do also recline and slide a little bit as well. So you can, give yourself a little more cargo space if you'd like, or maximize that rear legroom. It's all up to you. They even have some nice high-end features, like you have some roll-up sunshades that are manual, but you have sunshades. You also have climate control back there. Again, just a simple, little adjustment there for the temperature. But you have air vents, heated outboard rear seats, as well as power outlets back there. There's also fold-down center armrests and pockets in those doors as well. And they have this really nice large panoramic moonroof to look out of here in these top trims as well. And it's a really, really nice experience combined with even the ambient lighting you have a little bit of here in this vehicle. It's really nice. There's even the little door pockets are illuminated. And so there's just, some actual thought went into the luxuries here. And I think they really tried pretty hard with this. And I think it really shows. It's a very nice back seat. Moving on to the cargo space here in the QX50. That's, your average kind of space for something in this segment. You know, pretty nice and wide, nice and long. Beneath the floor there, you have, you know, a few other little things there, but not a whole lot of extra space. But, you know, should be totally fine. And, you know, again, pretty much par for the course in this segment. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Infiniti here has this, I think, slightly newer Infiniti key. It's based on the old one, but a little bit nicer. And, yeah, you know, nothing on the back, just, you know, still a fine key. It would be nice to see them get a newer key, though. But, of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the QX50. So the first thing you notice about it, well, I think the first thing I notice is, you know, you have a nice high seating position. It's pretty easy to drive. I don't love the base of the A-pillar here, though. It's a little thick, and there have been a couple of times where it's kind of gotten in my way a little bit in various driving scenarios, but not too bad. You know, view out of the back is, of course, nice and easy, and I like the frameless rearview mirror as well. But other things to note here about the QX50. So there's a couple interesting things about it. So first is that we have the direct steering system here in these Infinitis, which is a steer-by-wire, so there is no physical connection. I believe there is still, you know, like some backup stuff going on behind the scenes, but basically, you know, it's their like digitized steering in a way, and it's really good. They've really refined it over the many years they've, you know, been working through this system. And, you know, honestly, if no one told you, you probably wouldn't even notice. It feels, you know, pretty average for the segment. A little light, a little dead, but, you know, totally fine. And to me, it was no problem this week. But the more interesting thing, though, is the throttle response. And this is the biggest problem of this vehicle, I think. You'll notice it immediately on a test drive. So it's very easy to suss out for yourself and figure out whether or not it's a deal breaker. So the setup with this vehicle is very interesting. It runs a variable compression turbocharged engine. It's the first of its kind in the world, in a production vehicle at least. And so it's not really, I mean, that I think much of a problem. The real problem is the fact that it's paired up to a CVT transmission, and it's a turbocharged engine. And this is something that I even noticed with the turbocharged Subarus that have automatic CVT transmissions, where it's always this guessing game and this real rubber bandy effect where you never know how much power you're going to get, because the CVT wants to give you instant response, but then it's waiting for the turbo, so it revs too much, and then the turbo kicks in, then it's too much power, and then you're always doing this woo woo, and then it's always like this guessing game, and it's hard to be smooth with, and it's hard to know what you're going to get. If you're putting around slowly and you're at a relaxed pace, it'll probably hum along at low RPMs, and it probably won't be an issue. But, you know, you don't have to be an enthusiast or a race car driver to get annoyed by it, because even just pulling out from an intersection and needing a little bit more power or something like that, that's where it's like you don't know what you're going to get. You never know exactly what you're going to get. At least I haven't in my week of driving. Maybe after many miles you get used to it, but I mean, even Car and Driver had one of these for 40,000 miles, and they still never got accustomed to it or really enjoyed it. I mean, it's livable, I suppose, if you don't mind the guessing game constantly, but it's just not great. But anyway, we're going to go put it up into the sport mode here, and let's turn down onto this back road and see how it accelerates. And here we go. There we go. So it's even that, he has a little bit delayed guessing game, and it kind of fixed some shifts there for you, because it is a CVT with no actual real gears. If you do want to pretend like you have real gears, they do have paddle shifters here. You can manually shift through 8 predefined, you know, gear sets, I suppose. But you know, it's better off just leaving it in its automatic mode, letting it do its thing. But anyway, as far as the power goes, like I said, it's a 2-liter turbocharged variable compression turbo engine. And it does 268 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is about 6.5 seconds or so for these, and you know, that's, I'd say, slightly behind what you get on most other vehicles in this segment. Some of the quicker ones in this segment, like the Audi Q5, will do like a 5.5 seconds 0 to 60, so about a full second faster than this. No one buying these really cares about drag racing or anything, though. If you are interested in that, some of the competitors do offer performance variants of, you know, vehicles in this segment. Infiniti does not, you know, even though they had like the Red Sport motor in the Q50, they never offered that here in the QX50, unfortunately. So, you know, you're stuck with this amount of power, but again, it's totally fine. And again, when you're putting around and stuff, it's smooth, it's pretty quiet, pretty refined, and so, you know, in light throttle applications, it's totally good. So yeah, just definitely test drive one of these. Don't buy it sight unseen. Test drive one, see what you think about the throttle response, and go from there. I will say brake response is pretty good. It's a little numb and a little dead. It's not as good as some of the other competitors, again, in this segment, but It's been mostly fine this week. I haven't had too many complaints with it, honestly. And now we're on this little bit of a rougher road that sometimes generates some more road noise, and you hear it a little bit, but honestly, it's not too bad. It's been a very, nice, comfy cruiser is really the bottom line here for this, I think. But coming up some corners here, and let's see how this handles for those that do care about handling a little bit. So 20-inch wheels on this top trim certainly help us, but it's a little leany, and I'm not expecting it to be sporty, because this is one of the vehicles where they chose not to do something sporty with it, and I think that's very respectable, because most people in this segment don't need something sporty. They just want something comfortable and luxurious and just a nice cruiser to go from point A to point B in, and that's what this does, and it does it very well. So these weigh just a little over 4,100 pounds. You have an all-wheel drive system as standard now. I think in prior model years you were able to get it with front-wheel drive, but now it's all-wheel drive for all of them. And I think with this amount of power too, and this engine the way it is, I think you're going to want all-wheel drive, because otherwise it's probably going to be wheel spin central. I know, and even the Nissan Altima that has this same engine with front-wheel drive, that likes to spin the tires a decent bit, although the CVT kind of mushes it a little bit, so it's not quite as crazy as some of the others. But anyway, and everything else is pretty much par for the course. We have a multi-link independent rear suspension, and it drives really nicely. I will say sometimes the ride can be a tiny bit firm. We do have these run flat tires on this, which is why we don't have a spare tire in the cargo area. And it's sometimes a little rough over some bumps where it's just not quite as refined as some of the most advanced vehicles in this segment. Some of the competitors to this do even have adaptive damping, which we don't really have here in this. Again, I think that's going to be lost on most people anyway, probably a waste. But if you are someone who's, someone who enjoys performance, just know this one is more about being a cruiser than it is about, having any kind of sporty intentions. But that's okay. One thing, though, that wasn't great during my week of driving this vehicle, though, is that, especially in the morning, setting off, maybe it's a little colder outside, this vehicle was creaky. And when I say creaky, I mean it creaked like a 10-year-old Mercedes, just merely pulling out of my driveway. And early, the first few bumps in the road and stuff. I mean, it doesn't really do it now once it's warmed up and been driving for a while and warmer weather and stuff. But it's not great. Also, another thing I don't love is the driver assistance stuff that is very kind of old school obnoxious in a way. So I was just trying to get closer to the line. I didn't even cross over the double yellow, but I was getting closer to it because there was a pedestrian there. I wanted to give them a little bit of extra room, and it immediately was like, as you heard, and vibrating the steering wheel. And it's just, a lot of others do more advanced stuff, like Cadillac has a really cool haptic thing with the seats and a little bit more advanced. Some of the others just a little more subtle, just do a beep or just do a little bit of corrective action and that's it. This is, just doing all the wrong stuff, just being you're doing something wrong. And I mean, it's good that they're alerting you, but it's just, again, I think they could package that a little bit better to make it more effective and less annoying. And now out on the highway here in the QX50, I have the adaptive cruise control system on, which does have lane keep assist, and it's called the Pro Pilot Assist system here that Infiniti and Nissan both share. And going around these corners with direct sunlight here, it's doing a pretty good job of going around that corner. And I've actually been really impressed with Nissan and Infiniti's system. It's really well done. It always gives me pretty confident assistance. It doesn't really ping pong. It's very smooth. There it just was asking for a little bit more torque from my hand here because I didn't think my hand was on the wheel. It is, of course, still a hands-on system. But yeah, it's doing a pretty good job here of just cruising casually. And we got another gentle corner here coming up. We can see how it does with this one. I mean, the road lines aren't even super clearly marked here with this tar strip in the middle. And doing a little bit of slowing down, I think, for a corner here automatically because it's going a little bit below my set speed. But yeah, it's doing a pretty good job. Yeah, it does not like me lightly resting my hand. It's looking for me to constantly be nudging at the wheel myself to make sure that I am engaged and paying attention. But it is still nice to have this backup so that if you're on a long road trip or whatever, it can make some of those micro corrections for you and hopefully make it a little bit more relaxing here as far as driving goes. But it is worth noting that there are some other competitors that are slowly starting to offer more automated stuff, and so you know, these days it's still something that's in its infancy for this segment in particular, but other stuff, you know, that's even one segment up does offer some hands-free stuff, like the Lincoln Nautilus, for example. But anyway, so yeah, really nice out here on the highway, though. Also, you know, pretty nice and quiet, pretty refined, very smooth. Again, even on 20-inch wheels, you know, they do a pretty good job here. I mean, this road's currently really nice, but, you know, it's just a really nice cruiser out here on the highway, and so I think they did a really good job, again, nailing the comfy cruiser thing, and I'm really happy, honestly, that they focused on that. And also, it's, you know, basically par for the course these days, but, you know, it's just worth noting that you do get all the safety stuff as standard. So adaptive cruise control is standard, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, front and rear automatic emergency braking, all of that stuff is all included as standard. And that is notable, though, that they do still include it, because there are still some competitors like BMW and Mercedes, for example, that still make you pay extra for some of the adaptive cruise and, you know, some of the more advanced assistance stuff. And in this, it's all standard. Now, I don't think it's quite as advanced as some of the others, like I know the Lexus and the Mercedes and a few others do like a early intersection assist thing where it will, you know, make sure that you're not pulling out in front of someone, things like that. So this isn't quite as advanced, but, you know, still does all the basics and all the stuff I think people are really wanting the most. You know, it does do all that. Fuel economy for the QX50 here is 22 mpg in the city, 28 on the highway, and 25 combined. You go up 1 mpg if you were to get one of the old front-wheel drive ones in the past, but again, I believe these are all all-wheel drive now. But anyway, as far as that fuel economy goes, you know, on paper, that's basically what you get with most of the others in this segment. Now, in my driving here, admittedly, I didn't drive this vehicle a ton this week, as I had to split my time between this and another vehicle, but in my driving, which was primarily around town, kind of commuting, just, you know, running errands, things like that, not a whole lot of highway driving, my average has been about 20.5 mpg, and I did do a little bit more idling than usual in this vehicle, so call it 21. Even at 21, you know, I mean, I'm 1 under the city rating. That's okay. I usually do get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in my driving, so this falls in line with that. You know, but don't think that this variable compression turbo, even though it's more advanced, doesn't really save you any money on gas in the real world, unfortunately. And it is worth noting, if you do care about fuel economy, the Infiniti does not offer a hybrid version of this. That is something that some of the competitors offer, is hybrid variants, and a lot of them can do, you know, much better fuel economy. So if you are someone who wants that, other vehicles in this segment offer it, but unfortunately Infiniti does not. Maybe we'll see that for the next generation, or maybe Infiniti's just going to go straight for electric with all of these going forward. But we'll have to wait and see about that. But, you know, then the last thing really to mention here, though, is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And that is an interesting case, because as far as this one goes, this is a 2024 Autograph trim. This one is $61,610. And I'll just say very briefly, that just wouldn't make any sense. You'd need a giant discount on one of these for these to make sense at that price point. Thankfully, they fixed the pricing for 2025. Now, we do, again, lose some of the really high-end features here of this Autograph trim, but the new Sport trim still has the most of the basics in its, you know, top form. So you still have, like, heated and cooled seats in those. You still get the Bose stereo, you know, you still get leather, and, you know, but it's not quite as nice. There is a new red leather option for the Sports for 25, though, so that's nice. But those only max out at about $52,500. Again, like, loaded up as far as you can, and for 25, they start just over $44,000 and still come really nicely equipped even at that price point as well. But so now it becomes more of a compelling proposition, because at 52 grand, this comfortably undercuts basically everything else. Actually, it undercuts everything else in this segment. Now, it might not be the best in the segment. Like I said, driving and stuff, I think I prefer most of the competitors, honestly, over this. And, you know, again, all the competitors have bigger screens, you know, a little bit more impressive and a little more modern, just because most of them are newer. You know, so there is all those things to say about all of the competition, but again, they all are going to cost you more money. Now, as far as how that compares to the competition, though, like I said, it does undercut everybody, but there are a couple that are pretty close, and I think my favorite competitor that actually is the closest price-wise is the Acura RDX. The RDX is a really good handling vehicle, has a very nice interior, that does have its own quirk of having a little controller pad, unfortunately, still for the infotainment system. Don't love that. That is a deal breaker for some people, but the RDX feels a little more spacious. It has a longer cargo area, a roomier back seat, a little bit of a bigger feeling vehicle, a little more substantial, and a little more just of a predictable powertrain, having a 10-speed automatic, having a strong turbo engine, and also really good looks. That is another one though that is getting dated, but you know, it comes in only $2,000 extra. That's $54,500 for one of those, and I think is, you know, worth considering. Again, comes down to your deal and, you know, what dealer's able to do on, you know, all these brands I'm going to mention here. There's a ton, by the way, lots of competitors for this vehicle. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to kind of quickly run down, you know, the price premiums for all the other ones and some perks for those. But so yeah, RDX I think would, you know, be my pick because again, it's the next cheapest, and you know, I really have enjoyed those. But moving on from there, you have the Lexus NX coming in about $56,500, so that's about $4,000 of premium over this. That has a really nice big 14-inch touchscreen. You have the Lexus resale value, Lexus reliability and quality, and you know, that is really compelling. So maybe you pay an extra $4,000 up front, but you know, you may end up coming out ahead in the long run if you plan to buy and keep it, either from a frustration standpoint or just from, you know, that resale standpoint. Once again, with these Infinitis being known to, you know, drop a good bit, being great deals on the used market as a result, but you know, not great for a new car buyer. So you know, I think the Lexus is another one worth considering, and that one is also really nice because it offers you not only a regular hybrid version, but also even a plug-in hybrid version, depending on, again, just how much electrification you want and how much efficiency you want. So I really like the NX as well. I've, you know, spent a lot of time in those, and they're very, very well done too. At that same $56,500 price tag, you can also get yourself an Audi Q5, and the Q5 is also very nice. I spent a week with one a few years ago, really liked it. That's another one that is very dated. We do have a new gen Q5 here coming in early 2025, so right on the horizon here. But if you can snag one of those, you know, earlier 2025 or the 2024s left over, Q5 again might have some deals here for these old gen versions. Audis also feel a little more solid. It's a little faster. Now you do have, you know, the unknowns of a, you know, used European vehicle or an older European vehicle as time goes on. They can get a little glitchy, you know, in the long term, but I mean, they seem to be, you know, fairly reliable, solid vehicles as well. You know, but so that's another one, just again at that price premium, might be worth considering, although it will depreciate faster than that Lexus. So that, yeah, I mean, that's most of the main competitors here. There are a few others, but I think those are the top ones in this segment. And so take your pick. It all comes down to personal preference. But I think at the end of the day, if you just want a luxurious, comfy cruiser with a luxury badge on the front, and you know, you just want that comfort, I think that the QX50, again, with 2025 pricing in particular, is really a solid buy. Or if you're buying one of these used, especially lightly used, you know, I think that this could make a ton of sense and be a very, very strong value. And I love that Infiniti did fix that pricing, and they read the room. They figured out, okay, we can't justify, you know, these high price tags like this one at 61. And so, you know, I'm glad that they kind of, you know, corrected that here. So, because otherwise, you know, with correct pricing, this is a really nice little vehicle, and I can certainly see a niche for people who, again, prefer the old school setup and, you know, don't mind this turbo engine and the way that it's tuned with this CVT. And I think, you know, hopefully these can still find a few buyers while these remain until, you know, there's a new gen version down the road. But anyway, that's all my thoughts here on the 2024 QX50. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Infiniti for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.